Time to pull up a chair. We've got another great story for you today in the rLounge. Everything comes with a cost. Today in the rLounge, there's nothing like free childcare. Daughter-in-law's friend called me ugly bum, and they both laughed. I quit babysitting. Guess who had the last laugh? Well, you don't get to 67 without having some stories to tell. I've been through enough to know when to walk away, when to stand my ground, and when to let things roll off my back. That's the wisdom age and experience give you. I'm a retired military man. After serving my country for decades, I retired and settled into what I thought would be a peaceful life. But retirement doesn't mean sitting on your hands all day. I like to stay active, so I spent my post-military life coaching baseball for kids at a local club. Teaching those kids gives me purpose. I like seeing them develop their skills, and I feel like I'm giving back to the community in some small way. I'm single now. My wife died 4 years ago due to COVID. I have a son who's married, and they recently had a baby. I was elated at the sight of my granddaughter. I always wanted to have a daughter, but we were left with just a son. We couldn't conceive after him. That's why, when my son and daughter-in-law came to me with their hands out a little over 8 months ago, I didn't hesitate to help. My granddaughter was born, and like a lot of young couples, they were in over their heads financially. Both of them work full-time jobs, which is fine, but they were struggling to find affordable childcare. We all know daycare is expensive these days, and hiring a nanny? Forget about it. They couldn't swing it. So, after her maternity leave was over, I stepped up and offered to watch my granddaughter. Why not? I got the time, and I love the kid. Plus, it would give me the chance to bond with her, something I didn't always get to do when my son was young because I was mostly deployed. For the past 8 months, I've been doing just that, babysitting my granddaughter during the day while my son and daughter-in-law go to work. I didn't ask for anything in return. No money, no favors, just the satisfaction of knowing I was helping my family. After my morning class, I go to their house, and by that time, daughter-in-law is ready to leave for work. I spend the day with the baby. I'd keep her busy with activities, take her for walks, play with her, change diapers, the whole 9 yards. By the time the day ends, I stay at her place until my son and daughter-in-law come home from work, just to make sure everything is in order before heading back to my own house. It isn't an easy work, but it isn't unbearable either. I love my granddaughter, and that's enough. However, there's something about my daughter-in-law that makes me feel uncomfortable. She hasn't been rude to me directly, but there's always this underlying tension in the air, a coldness in her attitude. I couldn't quite put my finger on it at first, but now I think it's about my physique and my appearance. I have served my country and have taken bullets. I have a gunshot scar on my right ear, weathered and rugged face, which might look unpleasant to my daughter-in-law. The coldness was bearable, but for the last 2 to 3 months, there's something more. Daughter-in-law has a friend named Bonnie who often drops by in the evening and sometimes arrives with daughter-in-law when she returns from work. Usually I play with my granddaughter on the front lawn in the evening when daughter-in-law arrives. She freshens up and picks up the baby from the lawn, and then I leave. The days Bonnie comes, daughter-in-law doesn't come out. She spends time with her friend and doesn't attend to the baby, so I overstay to give daughter-in-law the time to hang out with her friend. Now, I don't know Bonnie that well, but from the day I saw her for the first time, I didn't like her. I'm not one to judge people too quickly, but there's something about her that just doesn't sit right with me. Maybe it's the way she carries herself. There's an air of arrogance about her, like she thinks she's better than everyone else in the room. Maybe it's me just being old-fashioned, but I believe you can learn a lot about a person by how they treat others. And Bonnie, well, she treated me like I was invisible. Whenever Bonnie is over, she and my daughter-in-law sit in the living room or the kitchen, chatting and laughing. I didn't mind that part, but every time I passed by them or entered the house, I'd catch them exchanging those weird looks. You know the type. Those sideways glances that make you feel like you're the punchline to a joke you're not in on. There are so many times I caught them staring at me and whispering something as if I was the subject, and when there's eye contact with me, they just smirk at each other. It makes me uncomfortable, but I don't want to cause a scene, so I keep my mouth shut. After all, I'm there to take care of my granddaughter, not to worry about what 2 women in their 30s think of me. But it just isn't the looks. There's an overall vibe of judgment coming from them, like I don't belong. I'd be in the living room playing with my granddaughter, and I'd hear their whispers from the kitchen. Sometimes they'd stop talking altogether when I walked by, only to start up again once I was out of earshot. They didn't have to say anything for me to know they were talking about me. The air gets thick with it. It bothers me, but I figured it out. Whatever, it's just a couple of immature women gossiping. I'm a grown man. I don't need validation from them. My job is to take care of my granddaughter, and I'm doing that just fine. But in the back of my mind, I can't shake the feeling that something's off. There's one more thing. My daughter-in-law never quite seems to appreciate the help I'm giving, at least not like I thought she would. But I keep at it because I want to support my son and his family. I spoke to my friends about this, and they dismissed it, saying I was just overthinking, and why on earth would these 2 women be bothered about me? They would have plenty of other stuff to gossip. I really don't know what to do in this situation. Am I really overthinking? I researched about this, and according to some pages, I may be suffering from a disorder. I don't know. It's so lonely being an old man. I don't have anyone who can understand me. I certainly cannot confront my son about it. My friends dismissed my concern. It has reached the point where I don't want to babysit my granddaughter, and whenever I see Bonnie, I want to run out of there. Am I going nuts? Is my feeling even genuine? You've dedicated your time and effort to caring for your granddaughter, and it's disheartening to feel like your contributions aren't appreciated or respected. Your feelings are totally valid, OP. It's important to trust your instincts with this. If you feel that the atmosphere is affecting your willingness to babysit, it should be helpful to set some boundaries. Maybe consider having an open conversation with your son about how you're feeling. He might not realize the impact this is having on you. Update 1. Thank you, my friend, for approving my post. I was kind of scared that people might call me crazy, but I'm thankful that a lot of my pals validated my feeling to be real. Vibe is real. I tell you because I overheard a conversation I wasn't supposed to hear and it proved that one should really trust their instincts. Bonnie said something that hit me like a ton of bricks. So, the day before yesterday, a regular evening, daughter-in-law came home from work with Bonnie. It was raining outside, so I was playing with my granddaughter in the living room. They walked past me, and as usual, I felt the negative vibe radiating from their looks. Since I was in the living room, they sat inside the room to talk. After a while, I went to use the loo, and just then my granddaughter started crying. They didn't see me going to the bathroom. Daughter-in-law and her friend rushed from the room to attend to her. Her friend said, "When did he leave?" Daughter-in-law said, "Dunno. Could he just leave the baby alone without informing us? Dang." The bathroom was attached to the living room, and I could hear every word clearly. Then Bonnie said, "That ugly bum has gotten an attitude, huh?" I stopped dead in my tracks. Ugly bum? That was me she was talking about. There's no mistaking it. What really got to me wasn't just Bonnie's nasty comment. It was daughter-in-law's reaction. She laughed. Laughed like it was the funniest thing in the world. I stood there for a moment trying to process what I'd just heard. I wasn't sure whether to confront them right then and there or to walk away and let it slide like I'd been doing for months. But something inside me snapped. I wasn't about to stand there and let them disrespect me like that after all I'd done for them. I couldn't hide and take it anymore. I flushed and came out, and they were flustered. I walked out and asked, "What did you just say?" They both looked at me like deer caught in headlights. "Oh, we weren't talking about you," Bonnie said quickly. A fake smile plastered across her face. Daughter-in-law just stared at me numb. I said, "I wasn't born yesterday. I know exactly what I heard. If you're something to say, spell it out on my face rather than going behind my back. I'm a military man and I know how to take bullets in the chest." Bonnie rolled her eyes at my statement. Daughter-in-law was still quiet. Bonnie repeated the same stuff, but this time she was irritated. "How many times should we say it wasn't about you? We were talking about our colleague." I said, "Well then, repeat the full conversation, and then we'll see who it was that you guys were talking about." Bonnie gestured at daughter-in-law, and she intervened. "Let it go. Why are you creating so much fuss about it? It wasn't about you." I ignored her and looked at Bonnie and said, "I have a rugged look because I've spent half of my life serving and protecting my country so that people like you could sleep safely at your homes. I'm also not a bum. I don't lounge on my son and my daughter-in-law's money. I earn my own living. I come here to help my family without getting anything in return." Daughter-in-law asked me to stop berating her friend because what I heard wasn't about me. "Screw it," I said, and left their place. They had no backbone to accept their words, so point in further argument. I stood up for myself and called them out. That was enough. An hour later, my son showed up at my house. He was fuming. His first sentence was, "You need to apologize to Bonnie." I was like, "What? I need to apologize to Bonnie? For what? Standing up for myself?" He said I humiliated his guest. Apparently, his wife and her friend were talking about just random stuff. I was eavesdropping on the conversation, and out of the blue, I picked up on them. I asked him if he thinks his father is crazy and would unnecessarily pick up on people. I told him what I heard. I realized he was least interested to hear my side. He was more keen on getting me to apologize to Bonnie to save their reputation in their social group. Apologize my butt. I said I don't give a rat's butt crap to what his wife or her friend are up to. I wasn't the one who wronged anyone, and I won't apologize. He stormed out of my house, breathing fire. His attitude made my blood boil. I mean, how dare he throw his nasty tantrums at me when I was the one who has been wronged by his wife's friend? That simp of a man has been manipulated so badly by his wife that he has forgotten logic. I drank my anger along with a single malt whiskey and passed out. The next morning, yesterday, I woke up at my usual time, did my routine work, went to train my students, went to a park to relax. I saw my phone start blowing up with texts from my son asking me when I would come to babysit their daughter. Ha! I royally ignored it, directed my calls to voicemail, and continued my day. I came back after my strolling, ate lunch, and was having a blissful afternoon nap when someone rampantly hit my doorbell. I was expecting this guest. Yeah, my son. I answered it, and he started ranting at me. "Where were you since this morning? I've been calling and texting you. I came here twice to look for you. Where did you go?" I was ready for this conversation. I asked him, "Why are you looking for me? Were you worried about me?" He got confused and said, "No, I mean yes, and you also didn't show up to babysit." I sighed, "Oh, that one. I spent the day relaxing at a park." He started ranting again. "What? Really? You were loitering the whole day while I missed work and struggled with the baby? I called you so many times. I even came here twice to drop the baby, but you weren't here. How could you be so irresponsible?" I glared at him and he stopped immediately. "First of all, you have no right to question me. How much do you pay me to babysit? None. That's right, so tone down. Second, I didn't show up because I didn't want to." He interjected saying you could have informed us if you wanted a break. I laughed and said, "I don't work for you that I have to inform you before not showing up. I did a favor to you, and now I'm pulling it back." He went silent, and then it struck him that I might be angry because of last night's outburst. What a loser. I said, "I'm not a bum. Can't defend that ugly comment, and I'm definitely not going back to that house where I'm disrespected." He realized he had messed up big time. He softened his tone, sat down and said, "Dad, look, I'm sorry. If this is what you want, we need you. Bonnie may have said something outrageous, but she's our guest, you know. If something bothered you, you could have told us later instead of confronting her right there." I was like, "Let me get this straight. She insulted me and your wife was enjoying it. She should have stopped her, but she didn't. I'm not spineless. I have to take a stand for myself. On top of that, you came here and threw tantrums at me instead of apologizing. That was the last nail in the coffin. We're done here." We were still talking about this when his wife called him yelling about his absence. He screamed back at her that he was cleaning up the mess created by Bonnie and her. Apparently, daughter-in-law left for work asking my son to take care of their daughter. He was working from home waiting for me to arrive. He thought I was just late. Since I didn't show up and my son was struggling to manage the baby and the work, daughter-in-law came back half day. They both were anxious that they missed work. Son left saying, "I'll get that woman to repent and apologize to you." I said no apology would help. A few hours later, he showed up with his daughter. I so knew this. He is not a man who can get his wife to apologize for her mistakes. I smirked and asked what happened to your wife. He said, "She's working. She needs to finish her work task, but I passed on the message that you're upset with her behavior and also Bonnie's attitude. There's something more that I need to tell you. Actually, Bonnie's grandparents and parents face some issues with the U.S. Army, so she's not particularly fond of Army men, you know. Also, she sees you at her house all the time. That's why some thoughts may have crossed her mind and she got a little sarcastic, but I'm sure my wife has nothing to do with Bonnie's comments." Side note, Bonnie is an immigrant and her family has some history with the U.S. military. I don't want to disclose that part because I think it's ridiculous and a cover-up for her narcissism. I said what she called me had nothing to do with my profession. It came out as pure evil and mockery. She commented on my looks and the fact that I spent my days at your place and lived at your mercy. Also, I don't have any grudge against Bonnie. She's no one to me, but your wife? How could she laugh at such derogatory comments? He asked me to forget everything and babysit their daughter as they cannot afford a nanny. I felt a surge of anger rise up in me. I've been busting my tail for them for 8 months, and this was the thanks I got? Not only did daughter-in-law let her friend disrespect me, but now my own son was brushing it off like it was nothing. He didn't seem to care about my feelings at all, just that I was a convenient solution to his childcare problems. Things got escalated when I put my foot down and said I would not babysit their daughter. No matter how much I love my granddaughter, I'm not going to sacrifice my self-esteem for love. I told him, I'm not a bum. I've got my own life, and I'm done with your free labor. If your wife thinks I'm just hanging around with nothing to do, then maybe you should start asking her to babysit. My son tried to reason with me, but I wasn't having it. I'd had enough. I wasn't going to let them walk all over me anymore. I told him he'd need to figure out his own childcare situation from now on. I know I've put up a wall between me and my son, but I don't care. I need to stand up for myself. They crossed a line, and they have to face the consequences. Good on you for standing up for yourself, OP. Your son's response is extremely troubling. It seems like he may not fully grasp the depth of your feelings or the disrespect you faced. Taking a step back from babysitting is a healthy choice for you right now. It's crucial to establish boundaries, especially when you feel unappreciated. Hopefully, this situation can lead to a healthier dynamic in the future, both for you and your son. Update 2. Daughter-in-law laughed when her friend called me an ugly bum. Guess who had the last laugh? So, a couple of months went by, and I didn't hear anything from my son. I'd effectively quit babysitting, and as far as I know, they were struggling to find someone else who could do it. I figured they'd have to either shell out the money for a daycare or convince any of their acquaintances to step up. Not my problem anymore. Then, yesterday evening, I got an unexpected visit from my son. He showed up at my house looking like a mess. Eyes bloodshot, clothes wrinkled, and just an overall look of defeat on his face. I called him in. I had a bad feeling about what was coming next. He just sat and stared at the floor, clearly working up the courage to tell me something. I casually asked him what's up, and he started crying with his face buried in his palms. So Bonnie was a scammer. She convinced daughter-in-law to invest in some scheme that would triple the money in a year. Apparently, invest in some shell company. I didn't understand the complete details. Neither I dug too much for it. Daughter-in-law got so impressed by the scheme that not only did she invest her savings and also part of my son's savings, and guess what happened to Bonnie after that? She vanished into thin air. They have lodged a police complaint and went to the cyber cell to track the payment, but no luck. I was shocked to know this. I mean, she was not a random acquaintance that daughter-in-law befriended in a mall or salon. She was her colleague, right? But yeah, she didn't show up for work. Her house is vacant. The cops took the details from the office and contacted her parents, but it turned out to be a wrong number. I didn't know what to say. On one hand, I felt terrible for them. On the other hand, I couldn't help but think back to all the times he'd brushed off my concerns, defending her behavior, and dismissed my feelings. He'd chosen her over me and asked me to apologize to be in her good books. My son broke down and asked for my help. He wanted me to babysit his daughter and also some money to save their sinking ship. I politely declined it. I said, I do feel bad for you, but you have called for it. Your wife chose to laugh and enjoy the derogatory comments her friend passed for me. She enjoyed it when her friends insulted me. You chose to side with your wife and her scammer friend and dismissed my feelings. So, you live with that choice. I'm out of here. He said he cannot afford to make ends meet. Forget about hiring a nanny. I was like, yet your wife's ego is so huge that she didn't join you here despite being in a hot soup, as you claim. He asked me if her apology would convince me to help them. I said no. Her apology meant nothing to me, just like your tears mean nothing. I'm not going to get swayed away by crocodile tears or half-hearted apology and give out my savings and my free service. He also hinted at the fact that I might need their help eventually as I'm getting old. I've considered this point, but I know if I was in that situation when I needed their help, they would have never stepped up, so why should I? He tried to guilt-trip me about how I turned my back towards my granddaughter, who has no fault in this. I said if my granddaughter grows up to be a sensible human, she'll respect me for standing up for myself. He left with a bitter face. I know I cannot count on them ever, but this is not because I turned them down. They wouldn't have supported me anyway, so better I save myself from being exploited. I would accept whatever God plans for me in my old age. I'm not losing my sleep over it. I'm enjoying my life to my fullest. Joined a school full-time to coach the students, and I couldn't be happier about it. It's completely understandable that you wouldn't want to jump back into the same dynamic, especially now that they're in trouble. You've taken the high road, and it's clear that you're prioritizing your well-being and not allowing yourself to be drawn back into a situation that disrespects you. As for your granddaughter, she will surely appreciate the example you're setting of standing up for yourself and not allowing others to walk all over you. Life has a funny way of working things out, and sometimes those lessons take time to manifest. Stay strong and keep embracing the positive changes in your life. Do you have a similar story? Share it with us in the comments below. Thank you for joining us today in the rLounge. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time.